Good evening. Pushkar Singh Dhami took oath as Uttarakhand Chief Minister on Sunday. 11 MLAs also took oath as ministers. We will tell you about the latest political developments in Uttarakhand in News Night tonight. Also on the show, RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat released a book titled The Meeting of Minds, a Bridging Initiative, where he said that the DNA of all Indians is the same, irrespective of religion. And our in focus tonight is India's contribution to Quad, strengthening geopolitical order in Indo-Pacific in view of India's substantial contribution to the region in combating COVID-19 particularly, and some attempts to create a negative impression in certain sections of the media. I'm Mulman Bhattacharya. First up, the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to share his thoughts at the CoWIN Global Conclave on Monday as India offers CoWIN as a digital public good to the world to combat COVID-19. Many countries have shown interest in adopting the CoWIN technology. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat says DNA of all Indians is the same irrespective of religion. The communities are united in India, says Sangh is not inspired by vote bank or party politics, says Sangh supports those working for the nationalist cause. Releases a book titled The Meeting of Minds, a Bridging Initiative, authored by Dr. Khwaja Iftikhar Ahmed. Pushkar Singh Dhami takes oath as Chief Minister of Uttarakhand. 11 MLAs also take oath of office in secrecy administered by Governor Baby Rani Maurya. Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveys his best wishes to the team for the new innings. Says best wishes to this team as they work towards progress and prosperity of Uttarakhand. India records 43,071 daily new cases in the last 24 hours. Recovery rate rises to 97.09%. States continue to unlock. UP to open cinema halls and multiplexes with 50% capacity from Monday. Delhi approves reopening of stadia and sports complexes without spectators. US celebrates its 245th Independence Day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extends his greetings and felicitations to the US President and the people of US, says as vibrant democracies, India and the US share values of freedom and liberty, and India-US strategic partnership has a truly global significance. Death toll in military plane crash in Philippines reaches 45. 40 people rescued. Philippines Armed Forces Chief says the plane had missed the runway as it tried to land on Jolo Island. Euro Cup football tournament closes in on its finale. A semi-final lineup of UEFA Euro 2020 finalized. Spain and Italy to face off in the first semi-final. England and Denmark to take on each other in the second semi-final. Our lead story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be sharing his thoughts at the CoWIN Global Conclave on Monday as India offers CoWIN as a digital public good to the world to combat COVID-19. Here's more. The success story of the CoWIN platform has garnered many eyeballs across the globe. The platform has helped and enabled India's nationwide massive vaccination program. And while many countries have expressed interest in the technology, the Union Ministries of Health, External Affairs and the National Health Authority in a joint initiative are organizing a virtual CoWIN Global Conclave on Monday with the aim of sharing India's experience with regard to vaccination through the CoWIN platform. The event will see participation from health and technology experts from representing countries across the globe. The CoWIN platform has provided a blueprint for the world with its lightweight technology in open and modular form, global scalability and inclusiveness. This citizen-centric platform has enabled citizens with blended registration through web and mobile interface for 4 persons, choice of vaccine location for convenience, online slot booking to avoid long queues, and universally verifiable instant digital certificate. The CoWIN platform is not only citizen-friendly but also has modules that assist vaccination centers and administrators in the physical operations and management. Furthermore, it enables vaccine providers to publish their schedule of vaccination based on availability and verify citizens at point of vaccination while recording the event of vaccination and any adverse events following immunization. While at this juncture, speed of vaccination and its proper planning are paramount, technology and experience sharing with stakeholders has become a global priority. Meghna Dev's report for DD India. And Prime Minister's office tweeted in India saying that Shri Narendra Modi will address the CoWIN Global Conclave tomorrow, 5th July at 3 p.m. National Health Authority also said that we are elated to announce that Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be sharing his thoughts on CoWIN Global Conclave as India offers CoWIN as a digital public good to the world to combat COVID-19. Join CoWIN Global Conclave on the 5th of July, 1500 hours Indian Standard Time. Well, RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat released a book titled The Meeting of Minds, a Bridging Initiative, authored by Dr. Khwaja Iftikhar Ahmed on Sunday, where he stressed that the DNA of all Indians is the same, irrespective of religion, and the communities are united in India. He said the Sangh is not inspired by vote bank politics or party politics and supports those who are working for the nationalist cause.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh Chief Mohan Bhagwat on Sunday made a strong pitch for religious harmony. He said that the work of the Sangh will benefit everyone and that it never indulges in vote bank politics.
क्योंकि हमारा संकल्प सत्य है, इरादा पक्का है, पवित्र है, किसी के विरोध में नहीं, किसी की प्रतिक्रिया में नहीं। तो दुनिया चाहे जो समझे, हम तो अपना काम करते चले जा रहे हैं और हमको पता है, केवल भरोसा नहीं, मेरे जैसे को तो पता है कि हम जो करेंगे उससे सबका भला होगा, किसी का बुरा नहीं होगा।
The RSS chief launched a book titled The Meeting of Minds, a bridging initiative written by Dr. Khwaja Iftikhar Ahmed. He said that Hindu-Muslim unity is misleading. They are not two groups. There's nothing to unite. They're already together.
हिंदू मुसलमान एकता, हमारा तो विचार ऐसा है कि ये शब्द ही बड़ा भ्रामक है। ये दो है ही नहीं, एकता की बात क्या है? इनको जोड़ना क्या? ये जुड़े हुए हैं, ये जुड़े हुए हैं और ये जब मानने लगते हैं कि हम जुड़े हुए नहीं हैं, तब दोनों संकट में पड़ जाते हैं। बात यही हुई है। हम लोग अलग नहीं हैं क्योंकि हमारे देश में ये परंपरा नहीं है कि आपकी पूजा अलग है, इसलिए आप अलग हैं।
He also said, we are descendants of the same ancestors. People of India have the same DNA.
मैं बहुत आग बबूला होकर भाषण करके हिंदुओं में पॉपुलर तो हो सकता हूं, लेकिन हिंदू मेरा साथ नहीं देगा कभी, क्योंकि वो आततायित्व पर चलने वाला नहीं है। वो जानता है कितना भी अलग है और अपना शत्रु भी है तो भी उसका जीव है तो उसको जीने का हक है।
RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat said that we all have to work towards making India a Vishwa Guru. He appealed to all to work together for this. With inputs from O.P. Yadav, DD India.
To discuss the address of Mohan Bhagwat, RSS Chief, we are joined by Praful Ketkar, Senior Journalist. Welcome, Praful Ketkar, to Newsnight. Your thoughts on Mohan Bhagwat saying that there is really no need to unite Hindus and Muslims, they are united, and those who think that there is a distinction between them or they are not united, that's where the problem lies.
Thank you, Mundan, for having me. I think this is a very important landmark speech, which gives a totally different kind of perspective towards the entire issue of Hindu-Muslim question. I will take you back to the work done by Swatantraveer Savarkar of 1907, when he wrote on the after 50 years of 1857, what was termed by the British as a revolt. He termed it as the first war of independence. And there he is making the similar kind of speech, where he is actually saying that Hindus and Muslims are from the same, ancestry, and that's why they fought together against the British rule in 1857. Entire problem started in 1905. First time India was divided on religious lines. Both Hindus and Muslims fought against it, and 1911 Britishers had to change the decision. Not just they had to change the decision, they had to change their capital from Calcutta to Delhi. That was the resistance for dividing Indians on Hindu-Muslim lines. Unfortunately, what happened post 1916-17 when the entire issue of Khilafat came into discussion, some elements actually tried to connect Indian Muslims to the idea of Khalifa and tried to take them their sentiments and their affiliation outside India. That was never the case. So I see this because this was a program of a book launch. The Meeting of Minds, a Bridging Initiative, is a book that essentially pitch for the commonalities that we have, even if we have different ways of worships. I think seeing these cultural roots as common ground and common ancestors, this is a very important perspective, and but the corollary to this perspective is it cannot be resolved, as the RSS Sarsangachalak said, it cannot be resolved by political means. Politics can in fact disturb that coherence of unity, or rather the integral perspective, simply because politics will always see us as some kind of vote banks. And that's why, with a cautionary note, he gave a different perspective to look at the Hindu-Muslim question.
Absolutely. Did he also call out attempts to create an impression in the minds of Muslims in India that Islam is in danger here? He said that Muslims should not get trapped in the cycle of fear, that Islam is in danger. So did he call out those deliberate attempts that have been made by certain vested sections?
Absolutely. See, we have, and I will take back you to the recently published Pew research. That shows that 91% of Indians do not take this, intolerance hype that was given by vested interest. Going beyond that, the same research with a 30,000 sample talks about Indian Muslims believing the karma theory, many of them believing in river Ganga as the sacred river. That simply shows that change of worship doesn't, even before advent of Islam, or for that matter Christianity in India, there were many sects and everybody coexisted, because we essentially believe that multiplicity of faiths doesn't mean that we are enemies of each other. There can be different ways to reach to the same truth and same God. That has been the fundamental thought of India. And that thought, because of that thought, the concept of Hindu-ness has come into existence. Besides the geo-cultural existence, we have geo-cultural. So Sindhu and Hindu, and this fundamental thought, that makes us Hindustan. So unless we realize that this multiplicity of faith, and what Mohan Bhagwat ji said today, that our DNA is same, Hindus and Muslims are not two groups, there is nothing to unite, simply because there is an inherent sense of unity. Expressions are different. We should learn to celebrate that diversity, those diverse expressions. Interestingly, Munmun, in 1948-49, when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was writing, and his first time he published, rather he wrote earlier, he published that book, Who Were Shudras, he is also talking on the same lines. Our DNA is same. In fact, he is talking about entire South Asia. I will not get into that debate because it will be complete digression. But the point here is, there may be few people who came here and settled down, but essentially when it comes to our ancestry, our cultural roots, our worldview, we are one, and that is the only guarantee that we will be organized as a society, as a nation, and such nation will be capable to guide the world as a Vishwa Guru. That was the essential message of today's speech by Dr. Mohan Bhagwat.
Right, and he also drew the link between unity and development, saying that for development, unity is a prerequisite.
Yes. See, he actually didn't talk about just unity. Many times, what happens, people think of unity as uniformity and as a rejection of diversity. He didn't talk about that. He said, what we need is a united, organized society. Organized in the sense where we have certain common conception about ourselves, we as a nationhood, and our objectives as a nation. Once that commonality is there, we function as an organized society that automatically leads to development, and that development then can be a guiding force to the entire world. Now, entire humanity is seeing us with lot of expectations.
Yes.
Because we are the model which has existed without interruption for hundreds of years, many centuries, and look at the the question of Islam. Wherever Islamic faith is there, you will see one dominant faith within Islam is actually the ruling class, and it ultimately eliminates the other versions of Islam.
Yes.
In India, on the contrary, you will see you have Shias and Sunnis living together. You have Khwajas, you have Bohras, you have multiplicity of faiths within Islam. You have Muslims who go to Dargah, who have their own gurus or saintly figures, which is possible only in India. Simply because we celebrate and we believe that multiplicity of faith is not essentially differences, it is expression of diversity. And
Yes.
in that case, what Dr. Bhagwat said today about the Nirakar and Akar, the manifestation of truth or godliness in the form of either a deity or believing as a formless God. So
Yes.
whether form or formless, we believe any path is our personal choice. The true sense of secularism, that it is my personal belief and I have a right to choose my path. That is the conviction, that is the beauty, that is the real spirit of our spiritual democracy, which has been a guiding force of our entire civilization, and that is the foundation of our organized, united society.
Absolutely. So India has a pluralistic traditions. It's presenting an example to the whole world. There are several faiths and cultures that are peacefully coexisting, and that is something that was once again brought out by RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat. Thank you so much for having joined us, Praful Ketkar. Well, let's move on now. Pushkar Singh Dhami took oath as Chief Minister of Uttarakhand on Sunday. 11 MLAs also took oath of office in secrecy administered by Governor Baby Rani Maurya. Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveyed his best wishes to the team for the new innings.
Uttarakhand finally got Pushkar Singh Dhami, a young face, to lead the state as the Chief Minister. He was administered oath of office and secrecy as the 11th Chief Minister of the state of Uttarakhand by Governor Baby Rani Maurya. He, along with 11 ministers, took the oath. His council of ministers consists of Satpal Maharaj, Dr. Harath Singh Rawat, Bansidhar Bhagat, Yashpal Arya, Bishan Singh, Subodh Unial, Arvind Pandey, Ganesh Joshi and Dr. Dhan Singh Rawat, along with Rekha Arya and Yatish Varanand. Providing more momentum to the already existing developmental projects in Uttarakhand is one of the top priorities of his government, is what Pushkar Singh Dhami told the media.
कोरोना काल में जो प्रदेश के अंदर और पूरे देश के अंदर और पूरी दुनिया के अंदर जो महामारी आई है, उसके कारण से जो आज नौजवानों में जो हमारे यहाँ रोजगार की समस्या खड़ी हो गई है और प्रदेश के अंदर हमारी सारी चीज़ें प्रभावित हुई हैं। इसमें हमारी चार धाम यात्रा है, हमारे पर्यटन का व्यवसाय करने वाले जो छोटे और बहुत आजीविका, छोटे से दुकानदारी से अपनी आजीविका चलाने के कारण जिनकी आजीविका का पूरी निर्भरता केवल और केवल ये पर्यटकों से और आने वाले लोगों से या श्रद्धालुओं से होती थी, उनकी आजीविका पर जो है बहुत मुश्किल में उनका जीवन खड़ा हो गया है। इस समय उनकी बड़ी कठिन राह इस समय हो गई है। हमारा प्रयास होगा कि उसको रास्ते पर लाए।
Tirath Singh Rawat was made State Chief Minister earlier, but due to constitutional crisis, he resigned within 4 months. Pushkar Singh Dhami was elected as leader of the Legislative Party on Saturday. He met former Chief Ministers Bhuvan Chandra Khanduri, Trivendra Singh Rawat and Tirath Singh Rawat before the swearing-in ceremony. The ministers of Dhami cabinet welcoming the decision of the top leadership termed this as a new direction for the future and expressed happiness.
युवाओं में बहुत लोकप्रिय हैं, हमारे युवा मोर्चा के अध्यक्ष रहे हैं और अखिल भारतीय विद्यार्थी परिषद के कार्यकर्ता रहे हैं, और मेरा तो सौभाग्य है कि मैं जब संगठन मंत्री था वो मेरे साथ में अध्यक्ष थे, तो बहुत अच्छा मैसेज पूरे उत्तराखंड में गया।
नई युवा शक्ति नेतृत्व के लिए आगे आई है और निश्चित रूप से उसके साथ पूरी पार्टी लगेगी, पूरी कैबिनेट लगेगी और 2022 में अच्छी विजय प्राप्त करेंगे।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi greeted Pushkar Singh Dhami on becoming Chief Minister of Uttarakhand. In his tweet message, the PM said, as I quote, "Congratulations to Shri Pushkar Dhami and all others who took oaths today. Best wishes to this team as they work towards the progress and prosperity of Uttarakhand." Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in his congratulatory message said, as I quote, "Heartiest congratulations to Pushkar Singh Dhami on taking oath as Uttarakhand Chief Minister. The state will move ahead on the path of development and good governance under the leadership of young and most energetic Dhami ji. I give my best wishes to him on his successful tenure." Unquote. Born on 16 September 1975 in Pithoragarh district, Dhami is a legislator from Khatima, BJP student wing. Pushkar Singh Dhami served as the officer on special duty when Koshyari was the chief minister. Dhami is considered a grassroots leader with elections to the Uttarakhand Assembly elections due next year. Keen administrative skills to develop the state amidst the pandemic, winning the trust and confidence of senior leaders in the state and boosting the morale of party workers are some of the challenges he will have to face. With Bureau Input, Chandrasekhar and Urmilesh report for DD India.
Buoyed by BJP's big win in UP's Zilla Parishad chairperson's polls, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath exuded confidence that BJP will return to power with over 300 seats in UP Assembly polls next year. He also said that the opposition parties could not relate with the people of the state.
The BJP got a shot in the arm as the party swept the Uttar Pradesh Zilla Panchayat chairperson's polls. The election is considered to be the semi-final as it happened before the state assembly elections due next year. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath said the results reflected public confidence in the state's good governance. He said the party will retain power in the state with a thumping victory.
2014, 2017, 2019 वही 2022 में भी रहे, इसमें कोई संदेह नहीं होना चाहिए। तो ये सब गठबंधन कुछ नहीं कर सकते। भारतीय जनता पार्टी और सहयोगी दलों के लोग, हमारे सहयोगी दल मिलकर के प्रचंड बहुमत के साथ इस चुनाव में फिर से 2022 में प्रचंड बहुमत के साथ चुनाव जीतेंगे। हमारे राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व ने 300 प्लस का लक्ष्य हमारे सामने रखा है। 300 से अधिक सीटें भारतीय जनता पार्टी जीत करके आगे बढ़ेगी।
The BJP has won 67 out of 75 seats in UP's district panchayat, out of which 2 seats went to the BJP's ally Apna Dal. BJP routed all opposition parties including the Samajwadi Party. Samajwadi Party has to be satisfied with only 5 seats. Lok Dal, Independence and Jan Satta Dal bagged 1 seat each. Slamming the opposition parties, Yogi Adityanath said that they failed to read the mind of the people.
यानी भारतीय जनता पार्टी जीते तो कभी ईवीएम पर और कभी प्रशासन पर आरोप लगाना, और समाजवादी पार्टी जीते तो उनकी मेहनत हो गई। ये भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ताओं की मेहनत है, एक एक कार्यकर्ता लगा है और उसका परिणाम हमारे सामने आया है।
After BJP got a thumping victory in the state, opposition parties have been questioning the mandate. But the ruling BJP has rejected the opposition's claim.
और जनता ने जो जनादेश दिया था वो समाजवादी पार्टी को दिया था। उस जनादेश के खिलाफ, उस जनादेश का अपहरण करके भारतीय जनता पार्टी जिलों में चुनाव जीती है।
आदरणीय योगी जी की लोकप्रियता, कार्यकर्ताओं की परिश्रम की पराकाष्ठा और जनप्रतिनिधियों का संपूर्ण सहयोग, जिस प्रकार ताकत लगाकर और पूरा संपूर्ण कार्यकर्ताओं ने जिस प्रकार ताकत लगाकर जीत दर्ज किया है, वास्तव में बधाई देना चाहता हूं। और वास्तव में जो जीत हुई, जिला पंचायत अध्यक्ष जो जीते हैं, ये गरीबों की सेवा के लिए हम लोग जीते हैं, गरीबों के कल्याण के लिए जीते हैं।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah and Party President JP Nadda have congratulated the winners and praised the policies of the BJP and the leadership of Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Meanwhile, Yogi Adityanath held a virtual meeting with the newly elected district panchayat chairpersons and said the Panchayati Raj system will be streamlined and development works will be expedited. In terms of numbers, by winning 67 seats, the BJP has also broken the record of 60 seats won by the SP in 2016. Moreover, the party has won 21 seats uncontested. Registering the thumping victory, the party has proven itself strong in rural areas. According to political parties, the results of these elections show the confidence of the people in the state government and has boosted the morale of party workers before the UP Assembly elections next year. Bureau Report, DD India.
India continues to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. It recorded 43,071 daily new cases in the last 24 hours. Recovery rate has risen to 97.09%. Meanwhile, states continue to unlock. UP will open cinema halls and multiplexes with 50% capacity from Monday, and Delhi has approved reopening of stadia and sports complexes without the presence of spectators.
The country is successfully fighting the battle against COVID-19. Pandemic's second wave is continuously weakening across India. India reported 43,071 new cases in last 24 hours. Now the active case load in the country has declined to 4,85,350. Active cases constitute 1.59% of total cases. So far, 2,96,58,078 people have recovered across the country. Daily recoveries continue to outnumber the daily new cases for the 52nd consecutive day. Recovery rate has increased to 97.09%. Daily positivity rate is at 2.34%, which is less than 5% for 27 consecutive day. In Mumbai, no new case surfaced in Dharavi on Sunday. Now there are only 22 active cases in the region. At an event at YB Chavan Center, Maharashtra Health Minister Rajesh Tope, ex-CM Devendra Fadnavis and Union Minister Ramdas Athavale honored COVID warriors. Meanwhile, Union Minister Nitin Gadkari inaugurated an oxygen plant at Vivekanand Hospital in Nagpur.
करीब 50 करोड़ रुपए के ऑक्सीजन प्लांट अनेक लोगों ने स्पॉन्सर किए। मेडिकल मेयो जहाँ हजार बेड है वहाँ भी ऑक्सीजन प्लांट नहीं था। अब सब जगह चंद्रपुर के मेडिकल कॉलेज को ऑक्सीजन प्लांट मिला, जहाँ 400 बेड के लिए दिया है। अमरावती में पंजाब और विश्व मेडिकल कॉलेज को दिया, वहाँ 600 बेड है। और अभी नागपुर के मेडिकल में करीब 800 बेड के लिए, एम्स में करीब 1000 बेड के लिए, और मेयो में भी कम से कम 600 बेड के लिए अब ऑक्सीजन का सप्लाई मिल गया है। तो नेचुरली अब ऑक्सीजन की कमी आगे नहीं आएगी।
In Delhi, 94 new cases have surfaced and 7 persons have lost lives due to COVID infections in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate in the capital is 0.13%. In view of the improving situation, the DGMA has allowed to open stadiums and sports complexes from Monday without spectators. COVID-19 restrictions are also being relaxed in other parts of the country. In Uttar Pradesh, multiplex cinema halls would be open from Monday at 50% seating capacity. As per new guidelines of state government, people would be allowed in cinema halls only after following the norms of masks, sanitizers and thermal scanning. Karnataka government has allowed to open malls, shopping complexes and religious places from Monday as per its new guidelines. Keeping this in mind, all preparations are going on at these places. The CEO of Garuda Mall in Bengaluru said that most of the employees of the mall have been vaccinated.
We sanitize the entire mall, whether it's lift, upper lift, escalator, or glass, railing and everything. Once we sanitize, then next issue is that overall security, housekeeping and all these people are vaccinated. So this is the best we can do. Along with that, tomorrow we'll follow the protocol. We are checking their fevers, then making sure that they have to maintain the 6 feet distance and all those things we are going to follow.
In Tamil Nadu, those temples are open from Monday, which were shut during the second wave of COVID-19. People turned out in large numbers in Sarojini Nagar market of Delhi on Sunday after relaxations in COVID-19 restrictions, and people were seen in long queues at KIMS Hospital of Hubli in Karnataka. Administration was trying its best to control the crowd. These visuals of gathering at market and hospital pose serious question. Tree plantation programs are being organized in Uttar Pradesh. Union Ministers Giriraj Singh and Santosh Gangwar planted trees on the campus of Ruhelkhand University at Bareilly in the memory of those persons who lost lives due to COVID-19. COVID victims can plant trees in those gardens of Moradabad, which have been made by the Forest Department in the memory of those persons who lost lives due to the pandemic. Meanwhile, vaccination program is going across the country at a fast pace. So far, over 35 crore and 12 lakh people have taken the jab. Bureau Report, TT India.
Well, let's now take a look at the Quad and India's contribution to it amid certain attempts to create a negative impression about India's role in the Quad in certain sections of the media. Let's take a look at how it all started this year on the 12th March 2021. First ever leader level summit of the Quad took place, but this was virtual in nature. Let's move on now to the next slide. The joint statement that was released after that meeting said that in-person summit at the leaders level will be taking place by the end of 2021. So we are in the run-up to that. Kurt Campbell, who is a top US administration official on Indo-Pacific policy, has said recently that US intends to hold a very ambitious Quad leaders meeting in Washington. So this meeting is about to take place in 2021 itself. Quad has pledged to respond to economic and health impacts of COVID-19. This has been a pledge that all four leaders of the Quad had made. Quad also pledged to expand safe, affordable and effective vaccine production and equitable access. So the focus was on greater production of vaccines and greater and equitable access across the world. Quad pledged to collaborate to strengthen and equitable vaccine access for the Indo-Pacific. So the focus has also been on the Indo-Pacific region particularly. Now let's move on. Quad pledged to work in close coordination with multilateral organizations including WHO and COVAX, and that's what it's been doing since March 2021 when this was part of the joint statement. Quad pledged to establish a vaccine expert working group for safe and effective vaccine distribution. So this is one of the three important working groups that was announced. Quad also pledged to launch critical and emerging technology working group to facilitate cooperation on futuristic innovative technologies. So the focus was also on futuristic innovative technologies, for which another working group was announced. Quad also pledged to establish a climate working group to strengthen climate actions globally. So this was the third working group that was announced at the end of the meeting. Quad pledged to address shared challenges in cyberspace, critical technologies, counterterrorism, quality infrastructure investment, some of the focus areas of the Quad summit. Also, Quad pledged to address shared challenges in humanitarian assistance, disaster relief and maritime domains. So all these have been the focus areas as far as the Quad summit is concerned. In fact, the US has said, and this is very important, that Quad is on track to meet the goal of producing at least 1 billion vaccines for Asia by the end of 2022. So the US is assuring that that goal is very much on track. We are making progress to achieve that goal. India came to the world's rescue by supplying essential drugs, PPE kits, masks, etc. during the pandemic. So India's contribution has been extremely central in the global fight against the pandemic, and India as a Quad member has delivered on that commitment and has gone even further. India supplied essential drugs to the US when it needed the most. You would remember the time when hydroxychloroquine was needed under the Donald Trump administration, and India removed the restrictions that were there as far as exports were concerned and ensured that a country like the US and several other countries got access to it. India supplied around 664 million doses of vaccines to over 95 countries. So with regard to vaccines, with regard to PPE kits, masks, drugs, etc., India has been extremely forthcoming with regard to helping the world. Let's move on. India sent vaccines, medical supplies and other help to dozens of small countries struggling in the pandemic. So this was not just limited to major countries that required help, but also small nations is what India reached out to. India helped its neighbors like Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh with vaccine supplies. So India focused on its neighbors, India focused on small states, India focused on major powers. Everyone that needed help, India was open to helping them. India helps small nations all over the world, including the Caribbean, which is near the US. India even reached out to the Caribbean nations. So India has ensured that it does all it could possibly for vaccine access and equity. On climate change, PM Modi had said that India's ambitious renewable energy target of 450 gigawatts by 2030 shows our commitment. Climate change, you would remember, is a key priority as far as the Quad group is concerned, and this statement by the Prime Minister was made at the Leaders Summit in April, which was initiated by US President Joe Biden. India and the US launched India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 Partnership. Prime Minister made a mention of this in his address at the Leaders Summit in April. Let's move on to the next slide. Partnership to help mobilize investments and demonstrate clean technologies and enable green collaboration. So 3 focus areas by and large of Quad. 1 of combating the COVID-19 pandemic, 2nd of ensuring that there is access to futuristic technologies, and 3rd one is to combat climate change as a whole. We'll take a break at this point in time. After the break, we will discuss further how India has played a central role as far as the making of the Quad is concerned and has been making extremely important contributions going forward as we move towards the first in-person summit meeting of the Quad leaders that is expected to take place later this year. Stay tuned.
As India and the US look to deepen their comprehensive global strategic partnership, we speak to India's ambassador to the US, Taranjeet Sandhu, about bilateral ties.
Prime Minister himself has taken the initiative and spoken about to several prospective investors, including sovereign funds in the US, to encourage them to invest in India.
The Quad and Indo-Pacific.
This is a very significant area of our cooperation, and I think the first 100 days of Biden administration clearly demonstrate that.
And defense and security cooperation.
During the time we were recently under stress on the defense side, the US administration, the US Congress, they demonstrated their commitment to India.
Watch the interview at 8 p.m. on Monday, 5th July, only on DD India. As India and the US look to deepen their comprehensive global strategic partnership, we speak to India's ambassador to the US, Taranjeet Sandhu, about bilateral ties.
Prime Minister himself has taken the initiative and spoken about to several prospective investors, including sovereign funds in the US, to encourage them to invest in India.
The Quad and Indo-Pacific.
This is a very significant area of our cooperation. And I think the first 100 days of Biden administration clearly demonstrate that.
And defense and security cooperation.
During the time we were recently under stress on the defense side, the US administration, the US Congress, they demonstrated their commitment to India.
Watch the interview at 8 p.m. on Monday, 5th July, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight. Our in focus tonight is India's contribution to Quad, strengthening a geopolitical order in Indo-Pacific. To talk about that, we have with us Ambassador Mohan Kumar. He's former ambassador of India to France and chairman of RIS, a Delhi-based think tank, and Professor Harsh Pant, strategic affairs expert. I welcome you both to Newsnight. Ambassador Kumar, I'll begin with you. Without a proactive India, could Quad have reached thus far?
Thank you very much for having me. I would argue that Quad doesn't make sense without India because both Australia and Japan are treaty allies of the United States. They don't need to really have a separate regional architecture to do what they want to do. There are treaties which bind them together. There are binding obligations of these three countries, so they can do what they want. It is really India which forms, in my view, the hub of Quad. And because India is such a large land mass in this region, it connects the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, there is also a lot of really geostrategic location at stake. And if you take each of the areas of Quad, frankly, the theater which is applicable is India. So in that sense, I would argue that in many ways, Quad without India would not make any sense, and therefore I would argue that India forms the ballast, if you like, of the Quad grouping.
Okay, Professor Pant, has India been playing a central role even in the run-up to the first in-person meeting of the four Quad leaders that we expect to take place in Washington?
Yes, you know, see, if India were not playing the kind of role that India was playing, the first leadership level summit would not really have taken place, because clearly, as Ambassador Kumar said, the three countries have alternative arrangements, and clearly, you know, their connections among themselves are sufficient if they want to go ahead and work out, you know, what they need to do in a certain geography. But India is the only country that connects Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, and therefore Quad and Indo-Pacific, you know, the whole idea of Indo-Pacific emanates from India's centrality to this architecture. So to say that India is either, you know, is the weakest link or no link at all, or that it doesn't matter, I think is to completely run away from the reality that India actually is driving it. And I would say Japan's articulation of you know, the conference of the two seas from that time onwards, and India's proactive stance on this, that India is willing to shoulder the kind of burden that many expected India to shoulder, I think is what created Indo-Pacific and then eventually Quad in the first place. So I think the debates and discussions can go on about who is doing what, but essentially unless India takes the kind of positions it has started taking, and unless India reaches out to like-minded countries like it is doing at the moment, I don't think the Quad has a future, or even the Indo-Pacific articulation has a future.
Ambassador Kumar, has India done for vaccine access and equity more than any other country in the world, in or outside Quad, irrespective of what certain vested interests may want the world to believe?
Yes, I think if you go back to the origins of the crisis, I think everybody knows we did far more than what was expected of India. And then, of course, there is no going away or denying the fact that we had a second wave which struck us quite badly. So there has been a temporary setback or a hiccup in terms of contribution of the vaccine to the COVAX facility. That is what I would say. But really, no matter which way you look at it, the manufacturing capacity of the vaccines in India is not going to disappear. Your population is what it is, and we are importing vaccines. So I do not see, frankly, an iota of difference in terms of the ultimate goal of producing 1 billion vaccines for East Asia by the end of 2022. I don't think that is in doubt. I think what these negative reports have sought to emphasize is the problem that we had, and there is no going away, as I said, from the fact that we had a temporary hiccup. There was a problem, and I personally think the problem has been overcome. I keep telling my friends, I have some nephews in Singapore who are saying, not to pick on Singapore, but they are saying they will try to vaccinate by October, November. And I joke to my nephew that India is vaccinating one Singapore every day. That's what we are doing now. And so you have to put it in perspective. The Quad is a long game. I don't think it's a temporary structure. Quad has now got ballast and momentum, and this will last a long time. Therefore, there will be issues, and India has overcome the issues for the time being. There may be a third wave, who knows, but I think we are better prepared. But this will not detract from the strategic objective of Quad. That's the point I want to make.
Absolutely. Do you agree with the point that Ambassador Mohan Kumar is making, Professor Pant? And I'll also take the same question to you. Has India done the most for vaccine access and equity amid the COVID-19 pandemic inside and outside Quad?
I think India has done remarkably well. I mean, frankly, if you look at the numbers, what India was doing during the first wave, the kind of extensive support that it was providing to countries. I mean, you can go all the way back to last April, May, when India started helping America, a country like America, not with the vaccine, but with the first, when we were supplying the medical kits and PPE kits and all that. The idea that India, became the country that came to the rescue when almost every single country, and these were all countries who had much better health infrastructure than us, almost all of those countries were primarily looking inwards and were flailing. It was not as if they were achieving great results. Most of these countries were actually looking at an abyss. And in that context, India's contribution has been remarkable to say that, look, we are going to not only help ourselves, but also help the world at a time when no other country was saying that. It gets, and I'm very surprised when you look at certain Western media reports which constantly pick on the challenges that India faces. No one denies them. We are not here to deny that the challenges India has faced in the past or India will continue to face, but not to acknowledge the achievements even in the midst of those challenges. That, I think, creates the sense that there is a kind of a bias in the reportage about India, which needs to go away. Frankly, if you look at the evidence, you just have to look at the facts. No one is saying that you have to write reports which glorify India. But just look at the facts and then report. And I think that is the real issue here in terms of the numbers that you are talking about. Vaccine, and during the first wave, India played an exemplary role, and that was the reason why India became the nodal factor when Quad talked about vaccines, right? The idea was America would fund, Australia would provide logistics, and Japan and America would fund it, and India would manufacture. That's the whole idea behind the Quad vaccine initiative. And I think that is on track. It seems to me that we will be able to meet the target, and we will be able to, and India has already indicated that gradually it's going to go back to the earlier stance where it is providing vaccines to certain countries. And given that the situation at the moment, at least, we are doing well in terms of our vaccination program, I think there is a great degree of credibility to what India is saying, and we have done, even bringing the second wave under control in a remarkably short period of time is in itself something that needs to be acknowledged. And therefore, how far India goes ahead with its vaccination, we can all crib about the numbers, or this is a small number. But look, as Mr. Kumar is saying, we are doing one Singapore or one Norway every day.
In absolute numbers, we've recorded the highest number of vaccinations so far. Ambassador Kumar, towards the end, a key pillar of Quad has also been combating climate change, and there we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterating that India will be achieving the target of 450 gigawatts by 2030 at the Leaders Summit that Joe Biden had initiated. He also spoke about a new partnership that India and the US launched called India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 Partnership, which aims at mobilizing investments, demonstrating green technologies. So again, here India walking the talk, India being the only G20 country, in fact, to meet the promises, or to be on the way of meeting promises made in the Paris Agreement.
Absolutely. I also think India will be doing the world a favor if it vaccinates at the pace at which it is doing. It's critically important that India vaccinate a large part of its population, not just for India's own sake, but also for global economic recovery, because India has contributed in the past and we hope to contribute to global economic recovery. I'm glad you brought up the subject of climate change, because Quad is not just about vaccines. That is only one part of the story. You've got climate change and you've got technology and cyber security. On those issues, it is India which will make a difference to Asia. How Quad will perform, how Quad delivers, how India performs will make a huge difference, frankly, to which model succeeds in Asia and the world. What is the kind of model that will succeed? I don't want to name countries, but everybody knows which country I have in mind when it comes to the kind of technology, to the kind of climate change proposals. What is the model that we are going to follow in terms of keeping sea lanes of communication open? So for me, it is the larger question as to which model is considered more successful. And that is frankly why the United States has attached so much importance to Quad, frankly. So to some extent, this battle between the two models of development, Quad will be the defining feature of that. How Quad performs, how India does within Quad will really determine what kind of an international order we can have in the future. That's at least my prediction. Professor Pant probably knows better. He's more of an academic than me, but my own sense is there is, I think, a larger battle being played out, and Quad's performance in areas like technology, climate change may well be determinant of the kind of order we will have in the future.
Right. Well, that's all the time that we have for this. Thank you, Professor Harsh Pant and Ambassador Mohan Kumar, for having joined us with your perspectives. Well, now it's time to take a look at some other stories in News at a Glance. Well, a delegation from the All Sikh Gurudwara management of Kashmir met Home Minister Amit Shah on Sunday. During the meeting, the delegation reportedly requested the Home Minister to take up the issue of conversion and provide some relief in the form of anti-conversion law. BJP's National President JP Nadda arrived at Himachal Pradesh's Bilaspur on a 3-day visit to the state. Chief Minister Jairam Thakur welcomed JP Nadda at Lunu ground on his arrival in Bilaspur. BJP's state president and other party members were also present on the occasion. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath reached Gorakhpur on Sunday. The CM, who is on a 2-day visit, inaugurated and laid the foundation stone of about 150 crore rupees schemes related to 6 assembly constituencies. The biggest project among these is the Tarkulani regulator. A tree plantation program is being carried out in Uttar Pradesh, during which around 25 crore saplings have been planted. Governor Anandiben Patel planted saplings in Jhansi, while Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath carried out tree plantation along the soon-to-be-opened Purvanchal Expressway in Sultanpur. The Yogi Adityanath-led UP government is planning to create a new record by planting 30 crore saplings in the state on the occasion of Van Mahotsav. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reached Lohia Hospital in Lucknow and inquired about the well-being of former Chief Minister Kalyan Singh, who is admitted there. During his visit, the Defence Minister was accompanied by BJP's State President Swatantra Dev Singh. According to doctors, the condition of Kalyan Singh is stable. Now a wrap of key global developments.
40 people dead. Rescue and recovery operations are underway. The Lockheed C-130 transport aircraft with 92 people on board crashed on landing. Defence Minister Delphin Lorenzana said in a statement that 40 were wounded. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extends warm felicitations and greetings to US President Joe Biden and the people of the USA on their 245th Independence Day. The PM said, as vibrant democracies, India and USA share values of freedom and liberty. He further added that the strategic partnership has a truly global significance. US President Joe Biden said his government is not certain about who is behind the ransomware attack that hit hundreds of American businesses earlier this week. He has directed the country's intelligence agencies to investigate, and the US will respond if they determine Russia is to be blamed. More than 135 Fires were burning across central British Columbia. Amid this, meteorologists warn of more lightning strike that could further stoke forest fires fanned by high winds. As per a meteorologist, over 710,000 lightning strikes were recorded in British Columbia and western Alberta between Wednesday and Thursday, which is a tenfold increase from an average 8,300 from the same period over the past 5 years. More than 1,300 homes were ordered evacuated during the heat wave. The town of Lytton broke Canada's 80-plus-year-old heat record with a 49.8 degrees Celsius temperature. In England, wearing face masks will become a matter of personal choice once the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. Speaking to a news channel, Housing Minister Robert Kenrick said the data which will decide final lockdown restrictions in England can be lifted on the date is looking very positive. Notably, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson in June confirmed that most restrictions in England will end on 19th of July on what has been dubbed Freedom Day by the government. Australia's New South Wales state on Sunday reported a decline in new daily COVID-19 cases. The state for the last 2 days has been reporting record infections this year. The New South Wales Premier said the state recorded 16 new COVID-19 infections, of which 13 were already in isolation. Sydney has been particularly hit by the latest outbreaks of the Delta variant.
The Tokyo Olympics will be held from the 23rd of July to 8th August. The Games were slated to be held last year, but it had to be postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And Team India is all set for the Games with more than 100 athletes achieving qualification so far in 18 sports. In order to support Tokyo-bound athletes, Sports Authority of India is conducting a quiz. You can participate in this quiz by logging into the address mygov.in/quiz/Road to Tokyo 2020. And Spain became the first team to book their place in the semi-finals of Euro 2020, and they were joined by Italy later. Denmark booked their place in the Euro 2020 semi-finals with a 2-1 win over the Czech, and England comfortably beat Ukraine 4-0 in Rome in the last quarter-final to set up a match up against Denmark in the Final Four.
Italy versus Spain. Italy and Spain meet in a titanic Euro 2020 semi-final clash on Tuesday night after coming through draining quarter-final ties. The Azzurri looked in fearsome form, making 32 games unbeaten by dispatching world's top-ranked team Belgium in Munich. Spain appear to have found their scoring touch as they scrapped past Switzerland on penalties. What's the story? In their absolute tiki-taka pomp, Spain swept Italy aside 4-0 in the final of UEFA Euro 2012, but the balance of power has shifted a little since. Italy eliminated La Roja with 2-0 win in the 2016 pre-quarterfinals. Their dizzying pace and killer finishing proved too much for a talented Belgium team last time out. The sky is the limit for Azzurri after a wonderful performance against Belgium. Italy had broken several national records at this Euro, but doubts linger about the conclusions to be drawn given the standard of their oppositions. Were the Azzurri ready for the #1 team in the FIFA rankings? The win and the performance in Munich eliminated all doubts. Roberto Mancini's men are up for any kind of battle. Luis Enrique's Spain have been enigmatic to say the least. After a group stage draw against Sweden and Poland, they beat Slovakia 5-0 to reach the last 16, where they scored 5 again, though it took extra time to finish off Croatia. A string of missed chances then allowed 10-man Switzerland to take them to penalties in the quarterfinals, but top-class opponents like Italy may yet bring out the best in them. England versus Denmark. Meanwhile, England will face Denmark in the Euro 2020 semi-finals with a place in the final at stake. Both teams won their quarterfinals, Denmark against Czech Republic in Baku, before Gareth Southgate's side triumphed over Ukraine in Rome. England reverted back to a 4-man defense for the win over Ukraine, and everyone would expect Gareth Southgate to stick with the same. Jadon Sancho was given a first start and impressed, so will hope to keep his place. Bukayo Saka and Jack Grealish are pushing for a start, however. Two teams with huge momentum, it will be a doubt which team manages the occasion better. England have the experience and will have the home crowd behind them. On paper, Gareth Southgate's sides are most talented, but the Danes have showed time and again they have the ability to beat the best. Sports Desk, DD India.
That's it then in this edition of Newsnight. Do remember to keep your masks on and also do get vaccinated if you haven't taken your jabs yet. Thanks for watching.